7:35 on a cloudy, foggy Monday morning in Mountain Home, Arkansas, and I want to introduce to the folks my good friend Phil Kirkland, who's the president of American Commitment. We've worked together years ago in Minneapolis and Washington, D.C. Phil, good morning.
Morning, Dale. How are you?
Doing fine, doing good. So I'm seeing here that's a scandal in Washington. My goodness, surprise, surprise. We've been battling this Obamacare stuff, and I've got a quotation here that you've said that one of the most outrageous but at least reported ongoing scandals in Washington is that the House and Senate have both falsely certified themselves as small businesses in order to fund health insurance for themselves and their staff with taxpayer dollars, sidestepping provisions of Obamacare. When is this going to end?
I don't know, but this is... Dale, everyone who hears about this is outraged, understandably and justifiably. And what angers me so much is that I expect this kind of behavior from Democrats, unfortunately, but I expect better from Republicans, and yet they're all going along with this, and they're all cooperating on this. And I think it's very difficult to take seriously Republicans who say we're going to restore the rule of law and stop Obama's lawlessness and et cetera, when it comes to their own staff and their own individual health care, they're more than willing to go along with something that clearly is an effort to get around the law. And Dale, I'll give you the whole history of this as briefly as I can.
Sure.
When the Obamacare law was moving through Congress, one of the things the American people demanded was, you need to live under this yourselves. If you're going to put millions of people into this system, you need to lose the coverage that you used to have, the fancy taxpayer-funded federal employee health benefits plan, and you've got to go into Obamacare like anyone else and pay your own premiums and deal with all the headaches and the whole new system that you're setting up. And this might be the only provision of the Obamacare law I support, because in fact they included that. They included language that specifically ended the coverage that members of Congress and their staff used to have and puts them in the regular Obamacare exchange. But you fast forward to late 2013, early 2014, when the Obamacare exchanges were actually set to launch, and there was there was a collective gnashing of teeth up on Capitol Hill from Democrats and Republicans, and they all said, well, this is a big pay cut. We're going to lose the gold-plated health care we have now. We don't want to go in the Obamacare exchange and pay our own way, and they went to the White House. And President Obama said, no problem. We'll issue an order from the Office of Personnel Management that says that taxpayers can keep paying for your premiums. And taxpayers pay about 75% of the premiums for members of Congress and their staff. That was supposed to end when Obamacare took effect. But this ruling from the Office of Personnel Management said, well, they can just keep paying for your premiums, but it'll have to be in Obamacare. But the problem, Dale, was the regular Obamacare exchange has no mechanism for an employer contribution because someone in Obamacare, in the regular exchange, they have to pay their own way. They can't get a contribution from their employer. And so the way they got around that and made this deal work is they filed these false documents. And under penalty of perjury, somebody filed a document saying the United States House of Representatives is a small business with less than 50 employees. And someone filed one saying the United States Senate is a small business with less than 50 employees. And then these two small businesses that supposedly have less than 100 employees combined had 13,700 people sign up for health care on the D.C. Small Business Exchange with that funding from taxpayers. And so it's just outrageous that they got away with this. These documents are blatant. The documents were obtained by Judicial Watch in FOIA litigation, and you can see in the documents that somebody signed. It says in giant letters, confirmation, I confirm we have less than 50 employees, and somebody signed it. And, we want to know who signed it. And so Senator Vitter from Louisiana, who's been working on this issue, had a vote a couple of weeks ago in his small business committee that he chairs to subpoena these documents to find out who signed them so we can ask them, hey, why'd you sign this, who told you to, and sort of move the investigation forward. And it failed on a 5-14 vote. All 9 Democrats on the committee voted no, and so did half the Republicans. 5 out of 10 Republicans on the committee voted no, and so they want to keep this covered up. We're going to keep helping Senator Vitter try to get to the bottom of this, but it's really disappointing when you have good conservative senators that you expect better from, people like Deb Fischer from Nebraska and Rand Paul from Kentucky, who are among the people who voted no. Very disappointing.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I'm sitting here listening, and I'm thinking about the fraud in Obamacare, and I don't know that I included you on this email, but we have heard that one of the local area hospitals CEO has also got his own consulting firm that reported $140,000 in business, and it's operated out of a home, they say. And we're still investigating this to find out more. But why would a CEO of a hospital in north central Arkansas, south central Missouri need his own consulting firm? Now, we've got the private option in Arkansas. Now, you know the nightmare that has become. So what's happening with the Obamacare private option money here? Is that being diverted somehow? In other words, is that being rechanneled? I don't understand why they'd need something like that. Then a month ago, in fact, a month ago today, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've learned of outrageously high bonuses that are being paid because the hospitals, quote, are doing so well under Obamacare. They're up 27% in the Nashville, Tennessee, Franklin area. That just outlandish bonuses that would pay some of our folks over here for 2 years, and it's because of Obamacare. Now, because of this in Arkansas, I'm going to go back to Arkansas, I'm calling for a complete audit of the hospitals, because you remember when the Supreme Court said Obamacare is a tax? Well, our Attorney General had a thing on, had a teleconference and said that any public entity that takes tax money either directly or indirectly is subject to Freedom of Information Acts, which means I could file the papers and find out where our tax dollars are going on any hospital I wanted to. Is that viable?
Probably not, unfortunately. I think that the courts would view that as a contracted purchase rather than as taxpayer funding, and so I think that they'll probably deny that, although, if you want to try. Can't hurt to try. But it's very strange, what we're seeing out of the hospitals. I mean, for instance, in Kentucky, which is the state that did the full Obamacare expansion, the state exchange, they've got a Democratic governor who's been very gung-ho on it. Then a report came out from the hospitals claiming that they're going to have to cut their payroll by $7 billion because of Obamacare, and you sort of have to scratch your head. The same hospitals that are pushing for Obamacare, that are telling their shareholders they're going to make a fortune on it, then they turn around and say they're going to have mass layoffs because of it. So I don't really understand what's happening to the hospital sector under Obamacare. There's a lot of conflicting evidence out there, but I will say that they were some of the biggest cheerleaders for this law, and they were very heavily involved in lobbying for it to pass at the federal level, as well as lobbying very heavily for the Medicaid expansions in the states. And so the idea that they somehow stand to take big losses, which is what the Kentucky Hospital Association is claiming, is very odd to me. But I don't know. It's not clear to me exactly what's going on, who's lining whose pockets, or what.
Well, even Phil, I've learned that I talked to a hospital employee of one of the many hospitals in north central Arkansas, and this particular one said that they're having receptionists. I mean, just literally receptionists do the coding for Obamacare filings for the insurance. I said, so what's if I drop the bowling ball on my foot at the bowling alley, does that mean that you could code it for an emergency appendectomy? The problem is they're not trained to do this. And it could happen. So, I mean, if I had a $250 injury and they filed a $12,000, oops, see what I'm saying? I like you say, you got fraud in Congress. I think I'm seeing fraud in Arkansas.
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of fraud in almost every large government program, and especially a program with the enormous complexity of Obamacare. Of course, there are going to be people who cheat, who manipulate it, who try to maximize their payouts. I'm sure that's happening all over the country, and that's one of the reasons that it's so foolish for Republicans in Congress to go along with this scam where they pretend to be a small business to get extra taxpayer funding for themselves and their staff, because every time a scandal breaks, or every time another big story happens, or every time the president does something that's contrary to the law, it's just hard to take seriously people who are criticizing fraud, for instance, in hospital reimbursements, when they're engaging in a fraud themselves to help themselves and their staff. And so I think it undermines the credibility of every member of Congress who's participating in it, and their ability to speak to all of these other frauds that are going on in Obamacare.
With a presidential election coming up in 2016, what are you looking for in your candidate concerning Obamacare?
Well, I think we've got to have a very clear commitment to fully repeal the law, number one. But I also think, better than that, we need to see a clear health care plan to replace it, and where we're going on health care as a country. President Bush really did very little on health care other than the prescription drug benefit and Medicare. He didn't really do much on the issue, and that really sort of left the field open for Obamacare. And I think we've got to understand that there needs to be another step beyond repeal. We've got to have a serious plan for how to address especially the cost issue, because that was a huge driver. And unfortunately, Obamacare's made it worse, not better. But if we don't do something to control medical costs, I mean, that's going to be a major, major problem for small business, and the Democrats are going to come right back in. And so, I think I want to see somebody who campaigns on a plan with some specificity and is willing to sort of take on opponents and defend it.
I'm looking for a candidate that, instead of just coming out and saying, we need to repeal Obamacare and be done with it, I want to see his plan.
Exactly.
Instead of saying, well, we need to repeal Obamacare, what about the 231,000 people in Arkansas that have the private option portion of Obamacare in Arkansas that could be going through cancer treatment? They could be going through some type of rehabilitation, could have been a heart attack, that actually helped them. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And so there are some good provisions in Obamacare. The problem is, it's too expensive, and sometimes some of the hospitals, some local hospitals, are reporting that they're losing money hand over fist because of all the red tape. So, I hear all kinds of crazy stories about some of this stuff. But what are we going to do with the 231,000 people? And see, Phil, we've got a dry border, Arkansas, Missouri, and, of course, Oklahoma and Arkansas dry border. So I asked one of our senators, I said, what's keeping Missouri and Oklahoma from just coming in and saying, hey, I live post office box, blah, 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 in Mountain Home. I need health insurance. They got it. There's nothing saying that to a resident.
I think you're exactly right. And, first of all, a big part of it is that if people are able-bodied working-age adults, we ought to do everything possible to get them onto jobs and get their health insurance that way rather than on a government program. So
right.
Part of it is just the overall economic agenda needs to be a lot stronger. But I think you're right that we need to see a specific health care plan out of the Republican nominee, and that's something that Mitt Romney really didn't have, and
right.
I think that hurt him a lot.
And I think what really hurts are Kansans and folks in Missouri and Oklahoma. I can only speak for this part of the country. I'm not in D.C., I'm not in New York, but the pre-existing condition clause. Oh, well, you had an appendectomy back in 1974. We can't cover you. That's been 41 years ago. And I've seen that happen. People have turned down because of something that happened a long time ago. And so that hurts our people.
There are much better ways to address that issue than the way that Obamacare does it. And I think you're right that you need to have a solution to that works and that people can understand, so that they can explain it to other people. And the failure to do that for so many years of Republican control is what created the big political opportunity for Democrats in Obamacare. So you're right, that needs to be a key piece of this.
So is there any candidate that you're seeing in your backyard, being that you're on the East Coast, any candidate that may make this happen?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most interesting staff moves that's happened so far in this campaign is actually Rick Perry hired a very, very sharp healthcare analyst named Ovik Roy from the Manhattan Institute, who's got a whole replacement plan for Obamacare that he developed. And so I thought that was a very interesting hire that may show that Rick Perry may be a guy who comes forward very aggressively on this issue. Bobby Jindal has a pretty good healthcare plan that he's already put out from his sort of not quite official campaign organization, because he hasn't announced yet. Ted Cruz has a bill that he introduced, but it's very limited. It's based on interstate competition. It's not a full replacement for Obamacare, so it remains to be seen what exactly his full replacement will look like. But I would say, based on that staff move, that probably the most comprehensive health care plan that we see, I would expect will come from the Rick Perry campaign.
Well, good. We're visiting with Phil Kirkland, president of American Commitment. Phil, we got about another minute before I have to end the conversation, go to the break, and finish out the program. Your final thoughts, about 60 seconds, sir.
Well, if people are as outraged as I am about this idea that Congress is getting away with falsely certifying itself as a small business, I would urge you to go to our website at AmericanCommitment.org, and we've got a specific action item on this. If you scroll down just a little bit, it's not the top one, but it's the next one, and make it very easy. First of all, when you click on it, you'll see the document I've been talking about and how blatant this is, and then you can send letters into Congress demanding that they stop this. And the way that we wrote the model letter, it's very pointed. It specifically asks, do you know who signed these documents? Do you support an investigation into it? And, I suspect that if you write it and you get a letter back that doesn't answer those questions, that just has some general language about health care or what have you, you can assume that your members actually support this fraud. And you'll be disappointed to learn that. I don't know if that's what you'll learn, but I would say take a couple minutes, fill out that form, and see what you get back, because I think it'll tell you a lot about your members.
And once again, your website for American Commitment is what?
It's AmericanCommitment.org.
Phil Kirkland, President of American Commitment. It's always a pleasure to have you on my morning program, sir. I look forward to seeing you again. One of these days we'll get to work together again, I hope.
Okay, sounds good, Dale. Have a good one.
Thanks, Phil. We'll be right back. Bye-bye. 7:54, cloudy conditions. It's not all that bad. We'll check the radar here in just a minute. I want to tell you about a benefit rodeo. There's going to be a benefit ACA rodeo for Charlotte Williams. It's going to be held at the Fulton County Fairgrounds Arena in Salem this Saturday, May 23rd. Now, the riding for the Charlotte Benefit Rodeo will have a bounty, bareback, saddle, bronc, and bull. The rodeo starts at 8 p.m. with mutton busting for kids 6 and under at 7. Plan to come out with a giving heart as cowgirls, cowboys, and loving community, so you can help this young lady that has battled cancer for over 10 years continue winning the battle. $8 adults, kids $7, and kids under 6 free. Concessions available. If you need more information about this, call Mark Pate at 870-371-0314 or Byron Price at 870-321-5025. And another number is Klein Hall at 501-412-3644. Take a quick look at the radar, hit that and refresh. Nothing in north central Arkansas at this time. Most of the shower activity, well, let me rephrase that. All the shower activity is in extreme southeast Arkansas. Northern Louisiana getting a lot of showers, moves over to Mississippi and into western Tennessee and Kentucky. Nothing that's affecting us right now. And I want to put this bug in your ear. Of course, next week is Memorial Day. You may have some folks coming in. Check out the state parks of Arkansas. Go to arkansasstateparks.com. You click on several of the icons there. We have parks that are basically in our backyard. You have Bull Shoals State Park, but you can log in and you can find all kinds of the parks in North Arkansas. You can drive an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. North Arkansas is a very beautiful part of the state, and I encourage you to get out and visit Arkansas. Visit stateparks.com. That wraps it up. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope you got a great day. We'll see you then.